Hi everyone, my name is Prerak Sethi and I'm one of the co-founders of the India InsurTech Association and the founder of RIA Insurance. The India InsurTech Association is excited to partner with B3i to organize this event here today. First, let me spend a couple of minutes to introduce the India InsurTech Association to our participants here. The India InsurTech Association, or IIA, started as a conversation between Shwetank Verma, Subhajit Mandal, and me in August 2020. While InsurTech is a hot topic of conversation amongst the insurance ecosystem in India, we found that there was no formal body driving interactions between startups, companies, professionals within the space. And when we looked outside of India, we found that practically every other country or region had an InsurTech organization. So we founded IIA as a not-for-profit that brings together the InsurTech's ecosystem of startups, insurers, reinsurers, policymakers, service providers, and insurance professionals onto a single platform. As we started the organization, we also outlined a high-level mission and a set of objectives for ourselves. Some of these are, first, facilitate partnerships between startups and broader insurance industry, such as insurers, reinsurers, and investors. Second, help Indian InsurTech companies to access global markets. 3, connect InsurTech startups with insurance industry experts, not just from within India, but also from outside of India. 4, be the independent voice of the InsurTech ecosystem to engage with policymakers to foster forward-looking policies. 5, publish and promote thought leadership. And then finally, number 6, which is to promote initiatives which use technology to increase the insurance penetration across different socioeconomic segments of India in a more equitable way. Amongst the other initiatives, we've also done events in InsurTech with some of the largest and well-known InsurTech digital and content properties, such as InsurTech Connect and the Digital Insurer. We've also published our annual report in collaboration with BCG on India InsurTech Landscape and Trends, which is available on our website. The second edition of this is on its way and will be released in March 2022. We also have partnerships with organizations such as the Institute of Actuaries of India, National Insurance Academy, BIMTech, and GiftCity. And also finally, to help our startup members to grow globally, we've done more than 10 plus tie-ups with similar global InsurTech associations, such as Italian InsurTech Association, InsurTech Australia, InsurTech London, InsurTech Israel, etc. We are also, by the way, organizing our first annual in-person event in April 2022, which will be held in New Delhi. Now, let me switch gears and talk about this series, the Deep Tech and Insurance series. Keeping in mind that one of our key objectives is to be on the forefront of thought leadership, the India InsurTech Association has now launched our Deep Tech and Insurance series. As part of the series, our goal is to bring in global experts to speak on cutting-edge topics around deep tech and insurance. Through the series, we also want to have more CTOs, CIOs, engineers, data scientists join our events and bring their voices to the IIA community. While InsurTech has two components, right? We've got insurance and we've got technology. So by bringing in more tech community to engage with the insurance community on cutting-edge ideas, we hope that we are able to unleash the next set of innovation in the insurance sector. Today's event on blockchain and insurance is the first event in this series. The insurance industry has been buzzing about the promise of blockchain for the past 5 years now. You cannot pick up an InsurTech report without it mentioning the power of blockchain and its use cases in the insurance industry. In India too, there have also been various initiatives by private players or by the government to explore how blockchain can be used in our sector. At the India InsurTech Association, we strongly believe that there will be ecosystem-wide blockchain use cases which can be adapted, which will push the entire insurance industry forward collectively. The partner for our event, B3i, is one of the best companies to speak about both blockchain and insurance, as well as how ecosystems can adopt blockchain for win-win use cases. B3i is a global initiative supported by 21 major insurance industry investors and has a diverse community of over 40 companies. B3i is building a platform, protocol, and network infrastructure to address critical insurance industry needs. Speakers here today from B3i are fantastic. I would like to welcome John Carolyn, the CEO of B3i, and Antonio Di Mazzo, the head of products at B3i, to our event. Now I'll hand over the stage to John. If you've got any questions, we've got a short Q&A at the end. What you can do is put them in the chat and we will pick up 2 to 3 questions and address them right at the end. Thank you, everyone. We look forward to the event.
Thank you very much, Prerak, and it's really my great pleasure to meet with you today to give me the opportunity to introduce you to B3i and tell you about the work that we do. Got a presentation which I'd like to share, which walks you through B3i. Just taking a moment to get this up and running. I'm joined today by my colleague, Antonio D'Amato, our head of product. Sorry, I'm just having a slight technical issue here. Okay, I think I'm back. Let me try the presentation one more time. And hopefully you're able to see that okay. As soon as I try and minimize it, it seems to be problematic. So I hope that works for everyone. So as I had mentioned, it's myself, John Carolyn, CEO of B3i, and my colleague, Antonio D'Amato, our head of product. What we want to walk you through is how we partner to enable bottom-up change in the industry, in the insurance industry. Antonio will run through some live blockchain implementations that B3i has done, how we innovate rapidly within blockchain, and then I'll bring it back to how we create value for the insurance industry. So the global insurance industry represents about 4% of the global GDP. It's a huge industry with a dirty little secret, which isn't that little either. So imagine an industry where 40% of the money that you pay as premiums doesn't go towards paying claims, or an industry where every year since 2008, the admin costs as a percentage of revenue have increased. If you contrast that with the automotive industry, the airline industry, or telcos, they've managed to bring down admin costs as a percentage of revenue by about 20% since 2009. Insurance, the global insurance industry has risen 40%. And the reason is because despite seeking to digitally transform and digitize many processes and offering customers digital user experiences, the back end is broken. The picture in this slide is one from one of our shareholders, one of the 5 largest reinsurance companies globally, where even today, in this day and age, a lot of their processes are still completely paper-based. 35% of their non-head office, their non-corporate center staff are employed in the back end. And until the insurance industry fixes the network plumbing, it can't have a truly digital experience and leverage the new data models, the vast amount of data to enable better pricing, better underwriting, and new technologies to enable new business models. So B3i has some unique insights from our DNA on how to solve this problem. We've been working for now, in April, it will be 6 years since the first B3i meetings took place. A consortium was formed in April 2016. That grew to 13 insurance companies fairly quickly, and almost 4 years ago, B3i Services AG, our company, was set up with the purpose of building network infrastructure, standards, and protocols to digitally transform the global insurance industry. Today, we count 21 shareholders, 21 companies as our shareholders. They operate in over 150 countries. They represent more than 50% of global reinsurance premiums and more than 11% of the total insurance market of 7 trillion. And it's with the deep collaboration over a very long period that B3i has unique insights in how we can enable bottom-up change with partners and third-party application developers, solving the many problems that fundamentally at their core have legacy processes and the degradation of data, which drives inefficiencies. We don't just have wonderful shareholders that give us deep insights and support the work that we do, but we've also got strategic partnerships with Tata Consultancy Services and MSG in Germany. We will speak more about that a little bit later. And we're also often misunderstood as a single application company, and we do a lot more than a single use case. We provide a platform that enables others to build on top of us. So we have application providers who are distributing their applications built on top of our network and our fundamentals. And those include Retablock and ClaimShare. So how do we go about doing this? How do we enable this bottom-up change? What is B3i? This is a very high-level architectural overview of B3i, and I'll start at the bottom. We have a network. On top of that, we have a platform and then an ecosystem of applications built by B3i, our partners and third-party application developers. So our network, 90% of the legal entities that operate identities, which operate infrastructure, what we call nodes within our network, use something called B3i's Node as a Service, which enables customers to very rapidly set up infrastructure, join a network, and begin transacting across the B3i network. Then Fluidity, of which I'll speak a little bit more in the next slide, is we call it an insurance industry operating system. It is a number of reusable components that we use to build our own applications and that partners use to build to rapidly build applications. It ensures interoperability at a risk level between applications. Importantly, increases the speed to market for ourselves and third parties as well. And then on top of that, we have applications that solve either discrete problems, point solutions, or more fully functional end-to-end applications, DLT-based applications that we build for our customers. And Antonio will take you through some of those live applications that have been in production for some time and which we continue to iterate and improve upon. Dropping to an even lower level detail to give you a bit better understanding of our architecture and our platform Fluidity. If you look at the network, it really is the physical infrastructure that is set up either on premise with some of our customers or the cloud identities, the cloud nodes that we provide through our Node as a Service. And it's a Corda-based DLT network. And Fluidity, which sits on top of that, is really with Corda being a general purpose enterprise, private permissioned enterprise blockchain, we see Fluidity as a library of components that are for DLT applications within insurance. These are generalized and extensible so that parties can use them and build on top of them to solve specific problems, while ensuring that not everyone is doing all the heavy lifting of setting up a network and ignoring the importance of interoperability. So we don't have multiple people putting down train track of different gauge, and then we find at borders that trains can't cross into other companies. And that's where B3i takes on that very important role. And one of our core components is something we call the risk transfer language. The risk transfer language is an insurance industry domain model for smart contracting. which is extensible to multiple lines and types of businesses. We've started initially in reinsurance, where there's a high level of standardization, but we recognize that there is a lot of specificity determined by regulations, determined by the specifics of certain risks, determined by geography, and that's where we would expect other people to take the risk transfer language as an example of a building block and use that to build their own applications, and that risk would then be transportable within our ecosystem. So a risk that comes into the ecosystem, the network, via an application built by a third party, it could be a retail policy, it could be a motor vehicle insurance, for example, that might be the subject of internal reinsurance. So it moves around within an insurance group for regulatory purposes. It then might be be part of a portfolio of risks that is then reinsured out to the external market. And where we have those risks and those policies defined by the risk transfer language, the automation that we can enable within that first retail policy can then cascade through our network, irrespective of who's built the application, because of that interoperability at a risk level. That's really one of those core fundamental components that we have within Fluidity, and we have a number of those other ones. And on top of our platform Fluidity, we have the applications. We're often misunderstood as an application company or a product company alone, where people make that mistake of just seeing the tip of the iceberg. They see the functionality that people interact with at a web application level, but they don't understand all of what has gone below that. And the reason I've made it clear, interoperability is very important for us, and it's one of the reasons to do that. But another one is speed, and for us, reach. We can't solve all of the problems that exist within insurance. We know that they are vast and complex, and no one person or one group of people know and understand how to solve those problems. So we want to be an enabler for other people to come and innovate on top of our platform and network. So we've got our own applications as examples, and Antonio will introduce you to some of these. B3i Re, which is our end-to-end reinsurance application in green. Similarly, we have a nuclear pools application. There's an insurance association called Europco, who we count as one of our customers, where we've provided them with an application called Unity. All of these are live and in production, being used by customers today. Similarly, we have third-party applications. I referred to earlier, RetaBlock, also live and in production, and ClaimShare, which is a solution for identifying potential fraud claims, fraudulent claims where people are double dipping, making the same claim with more than one insurer, and that's where the power of the network and the access to trusted data can identify the potential for that and mitigate some of the losses for insurers. We also have a number of projects in the pipeline. Some of these are protocols which would be implemented in many applications, whilst others are solutions in their own right. I think one of the very important things to understand about both the nature of the insurance industry and then B3i's go-to-market strategy is we don't believe that we know it all. I think we've made that hopefully made that clear. But there's a huge amount of complexity in insurance. For most of the people in the street, they understand insurance the way from a consumer perspective, where they might interact with their broker or directly with the insurer, and when they experience an event, they make a claim. Usually, not always the best experience, but hopefully that gets paid out. But what they don't always appreciate is that risk then gets sliced and diced and syndicated and shared within a much larger insurance industry, as risk finds its hopefully optimum route to capital that ultimately underwrites that risk. And it's because of that highly connected nature of insurance that we feel that we need to focus on the natural networks that already exist within insurance, where people are already sharing risk and transacting amongst themselves. We focus on those particular networks, which are often defined by specific risks or specific geographies or other characteristics, where we believe we can solve the problem, demonstrably solve problems and show a business case and get to critical mass within those smaller ecosystems, those closed ecosystems or networks, and then grow out of those by connecting those up. So an example you will have seen that is Europco. Europco is a insurance organization, insurance association where they co-insure risks. There are 8 European mutuals that partner to do that, and the Europco Unity application enables them to share risk amongst themselves. Similarly, there are 30 countries that operate national nuclear pools, where nuclear pools are seeded through commercial domestic insurers into a national pool, and then those are frequently private-public partnerships. And because of the geographical diversification characteristics of nuclear risk is then traded between those international pools. What our application does is a number of the country pools, I think 6 country level pools, are trading risk amongst themselves through the B3i application. We then plan to move in phase 2 into how that risk is seeded into those pools from domestic insurers in the particular countries where there aren't efficient ways to do that today. And that's really how we seek out strong cases to prove out the benefits of our solutions, of blockchain, of places where there is a lack of automation, and we then seek to make to have a clear signal, clear success, and grow out of those niches into broader areas. Our latest projects, which you've heard me speak about somewhat already, are Europco, which is a platform for trading marine cargo and fine art facultative reinsurance. It includes the placement and the governance of the administration of the governance that exists between the parties to Europco, as well as anti-competition compliance. Our most recent release has been the nuclear pools release, which was the recent year-end renewal of the treaties that exist between those country-level pools, was orchestrated on the B3i nuclear pools application. There are a number of other applications that we're working on, a smart delegated authority application, which it will enable embedded insurance. And we're also working on a managing general ledger data reporting toolkit. Antonio D'Amato, our Chief Product Officer, will shortly take over from me, where he will outline, amongst other things, amongst the demos, he will also go through our delivery methodology and our unique approach to engaging with customers and users in defining requirements, so that we ensure a high proportion of our projects lead to adoption, and part of our really secret sauce. And this is where we have one such customer, the Nordic pool manager, who shared her experiences with the B3i application. And with that, I will hand back to Antonio.
Okay, I hope you can hear me now. Great, thanks a lot. And And thanks everyone for the patience and for joining today. Thanks, John, for the introduction and for the details shared so far. And thanks a lot for the Indian InsurTech Association for having us today. I just want to highlight how important it is to have this type of initiatives to mobilize the industry and to make the tech component of the word InsurTech much bigger than it is today. So let's have a look at a couple of concepts that I want to share with you guys to trigger some thinking. Okay, so why distributed ledger? So why the industry is betting that much on this technology? Why it's so relevant? And let's consider the wider definition of what a distributed ledger is, right? Let's also look into the Bitcoin world. Like, let's look at the permissionless blockchain infrastructure, because those are also distributed ledgers from a certain standpoint. So first of all, establishing a distributed ledger delivers to the industry a unique value, which is having a single version of the truth, right? Ensuring that all the stakeholders can actually share the same view on a specific entity. It could be a policy, it could be an account entry, it could be an event, it could be a claim, it could be an identity, it could be anything. Today, the industry, the insurance industry end-to-end is an ecosystem, is a native ecosystem. However, in order to achieve synchronicity, in order to ensure that all the stakeholders are sharing the same information, there is a huge amount of effort that is put in place in order to achieve that synchronicity so that all the stakeholders are aligned. A distributed ledger delivers this single version of the truth. It's at core and keeps everyone in sync. So it's not just like the connectivity that the internet enables, but on top of that connectivity, it enables certainty. It enables synchronicity. And that small little evolution from established connectivity, connecting everyone, but giving to everyone the possibility of sharing a fact with certainty and in a trustless fashion implementation, that's of incredible value, but it's very small. And what you can do with a distributed ledger then, it's just, as it is with technology, there is a lot that can be built on top of that. And so the shared truth, the single version of the truth, can become something intelligent, something that is not just a static fact, an event. Imagine in the insurance industry, whenever is the hurricane season, we all know, there are named hurricanes that are happening on the east coast of the US, in the Caribbean area, and those are events. And then you can share the fact that a specific event was actually occurring at a specific date, like as an oracle. But you can embed logic into the information that you store into a blockchain, and you can make that logic useful for the industry. So you can have conditions in those entities there. So you can create smart contracts, as we call it. And smart because they can self-execute. But contracts, because of the fact that you are establishing an entity that is somehow secure, immutable, auditable, and it's written into the distributed ledger, either through the means of a public consensus mechanism or a private agreement notarized vehicle. And so it becomes a contract. So it becomes a meeting of minds, okay? And a meeting of identities, a shared truth with some logic, with some intelligence. And more importantly, it's distributed. Because, you can achieve actually the same deliverable with a centralized database. But why it's so important to keep it distributed? Why the distribution is actually a fundamental enabler of that? Because it removes the need of centralizing the data. As simple as that. The data remains where it needs to be, into the pocket of the legal entity that is responsible to manage and to administrate that data. And the underlying logic, it's ensuring that what I see is what you see. And the data I have is the data you have. And if, for some instance, a tamper action happens, that data is invalidated, and you can immediately recognize that there was something strange that happened there. So most people tend to say that the blockchain distributed ledger is tamper-proof. It's slightly different. It's tamper-evident. So you know that something actually was altered, and you can intervene, you can fix it, and you can change it. And more importantly, you don't need to trust and check. You just see what is on the ledger to assess what is the information, and to check where the information is as well. It's immutable, but it's immutable on the past, not in the future, of course. Once data is stored into the distributed ledger, it's there and needs to remain. There are, of course, different policies that can be applied to this immutability, as often people tend to say, okay, it's immutable. How do we make it GDPR compliant? You make it GDPR compliant up front. You don't store PII, personal identified information, on the blockchain, but you can make it relevant for that by pseudonyms, by using pseudonymization to do that. Then it's auditable. And this is a fundamental enabler. Being auditable doesn't mean that you can actually assess, as you do in a workflow analysis, all the steps that were executed. Of course you can. But in a blockchain, in a distributed ledger infrastructure, you can actually audit data point by data point, what was the evolution of the data along the entire life cycle of a specific transaction. And that's the depth at which you can do this level of auditability. It's incredibly advantageous, because it gives to underwriters, to auditors, to accountant, the capability of assessing how was the risk evolving during the journey, what type of decisions were taken, how did a specific reinsurer and a broker reach a specific price. So it's giving to the industry the possibility of really leveraging data and analyze exactly how the market behaves and what are the possibilities and how to steer that. It's private, okay? That's a fundamental thing. Here we go into the implementation for the industry. It's a private implementation. So it's not a public blockchain in the sense that everything is written into a public blockchain that is made available for everyone. You have those options. You have the options of either using a public blockchain, but then make the transactions private. And so think about zero knowledge snarks and ZK, zero knowledge proof and so on, or you use a private and permission infrastructure where everything is actually encrypted, it's private, it's only made available to the entities and parties that have an authority, that have the permission to participate on a specific transaction. We at B3i started from the private and permission, because that's that type of technology represents the best and the most proxy technology to what is currently implemented in the industry. But we don't believe that there will be limits in future, because the technology will evolve and will enable privacy to be achieved also at transaction level, as achieved. So potentially leveraging public infrastructure, but with privacy at transaction level. And also, we choose a technology that is private and permission, and that is also driven by a different consensus mechanism compared to the public and permissionless technologies. The underlying DLT that we use, it's agreement-based, and it's not consensus-driven, like proof of work or proof of stake. We gave up a little bit of decentralization in that scenario, but to give more enterprise-ready infrastructure technology, plus to give more throughput, to give more transactional capabilities. So But as I said, there are multiple ways to achieve what you can, ultimately achieve with a distributed ledger implementation. You want to share data, you want to share same information, you want to achieve synchronicity between parties, which is exactly one of the key challenges of the industry today. Many parties participating in a risk transfer and not being in sync. So interfaces are an option there. You have every insurer, every broker, every reinsurer exposing their APIs, and then everyone connecting to everyone. So let me rephrase. It means that basically everyone needs to connect his API to the APIs of someone else. Or potentially you need to connect your APIs to a gateway that is enabling you to connect to someone else as well. It's challenging as an implementation. You do not really achieve the single version of the truth, more importantly, because you don't have the certainty of the day on the data. What you see is what you see. It's just a sampling at a time. There is no delegation of truth. There is no possibility of doing that. And it is always also quite challenging to reconcile the data, because you may establish a connection, but it's not enough. Who guarantees that A speaks the same language as B? You can connect, you can have an interface, but how can you have the certainty that you're actually interpreting the data in the right way? And whenever the number increases, it's challenging. So with interfaces, you lose the network effect. Portals and platforms are a good way to achieve single versions of the truth and to achieve synchronicity. So you get what you need there, even though there are some compromises that you make on the data authority, because someone has access to the entire set of data. You can encrypt it, but there is someone that, in any case, the one that is managing the platform, can access the data and can see exactly inside what's going on. But there is also a single point of failure. There may be strategies to remove the single point of failure with some redundancy, with different architecture, but still, data is governed by the entity that is centralizing everything. And this model works, but in multiple instances, we have systems in the market that are centralizing the data, that are providing these portals and platforms. However, this type of approach, unfortunately, does not scale. It's not giving to the industry a real utility that aims to connect everyone, that aims to execute business processes transversally. So with a distributed ledger, you establish a distributed network where protocols can be executed between the nodes. And so what is a protocol? That's what we believe that the industry needs to go, is by establishing protocols rather than by creating portals and platforms. Because moving into the protocols, it means that you establish modus operandi. It's a target, it's an operating model that you introduce. And that's a technology-driven operating model that is built on top of a utility, of a technology that acts as a utility for everyone. So you have, in that scenario, with a distributed ledger, you establish the network. Everyone is connected, a secure network where nodes can execute protocols that will deliver single and distributed version of the truth, which will eliminate any reconciliation need, of course, but it will give you the connect ones to communicate to everyone without compromising the ownership. There is no central entity that owns the data here. There is just a node that is connected. And then, of course, you achieve this real-time communication. So an example here is Europco, okay? Because at B3i, as John said, we are focused on the network and we are investing effortlessly in the platform to grow the platform, to give to the industry a distributed operating system where they can build applications on top and create value for the industry stakeholders. And that's a message to all the startups out there. Imagine you could leverage an SDK that will basically give you all the tools that are necessary to build a distributed application And it will give you the network of insurers, reinsurers, brokers that are already there. And once your application is deployed, it can be distributed to everyone, but it's giving you already business value so that you can transform that value for the market, for the market players. And the Europco Association came to B3i with a specific, very, very specific challenge. They had a platform, a centralized platform, where they were transacting reinsurance. But that centralized platform had a challenge: the compliance with the anti-competition law. Those are all competitors. The Europco Association is an association of insurers, of mutual insurers, and they are all competitors in the markets where they operate. But they share risks in a specific framework, and they were always subject to audits in order to assess if they were in compliance with the anti-competition law. So they said, we want to be able to reinsure, to exchange, to mutualize our risks where we need capacity from multiple members, but we want to be compliant. A protocol there, it's what guarantees that. So we developed for them an implementation of the B3i reinsurance protocol, precisely for this association, to ensure that a specific anti-competition procedure is always applied. There is no possibility to not comply with the protocol. It's the protocol that decides how the multiple insurer can actually get in touch with each one and share risks. But instead of executing audits at the end of each quarter to check if everyone was actually behaving in the right way, it is the blockchain that is actually enforcing everyone to behave in the right way. And the role of a regulator, let's say an entity that is responsible for the compliance in the middle, is exercised through the means of capturing few data points for every transaction in a kind of observer role, and they can do active monitoring of the transaction. So enabling the industry to share the risks without representing any effort or any weight in order to ensure that those are executing compliance. That's just beautiful. And so we brought Europco with us, this association with us. We launched the application in November. We did lots of multiple tests. We brought them really in understanding in less than 6 months, from the launch to the MVP in March. And it was really, really a wonderful journey. And we have shared with them all the insights. We have brought them in this journey. And we are mobilizing many companies now to do the same, to leverage this operating model that we enable at B3i, which is enabling multiple insurers to achieve business objectives transversally. And even, which was the program manager, I think the best thing the thing is that they have implemented the first worldwide DLT-based secured network. And it has been, as you can see, we are automating a large part of the administrative work that they're doing. So not only we achieve the compliance, but there are rules that are delegated to the blockchain for the executions of some of the administrative efforts. So, but what we built at B3i, what I just said at the moment, looks like is an application, right? So we develop infrastructure solutions, okay? And we know very well what is your IT, what is the IT architecture of insurers and reinsurers in the market. So we are bringing to the industry a first insurance network, the possibility of achieving strong interconnectivity for the sake of executing risk transfer businesses. And we are investing in enabling a scalable integration layer, which means the B3i protocols are meant to be complementary to your IT ecosystems. And so you have to look at B3i as the vehicle through which your local IT architecture or your ideas as startups or your systems that you are developing for the insurance industry can actually be enabling your customer, your insurer, your business partner to communicate transversally. And so you have a reinsurance protocol, It is enabling you to create reinsurance agreement, to manage the administration, the technical accounting processes through the means of blockchain transactions. The same applies to the policies as well. And you can leverage the policy to enable policies to be exchanged in co-insurance agreement, in MGA cover holder carrier agreements, so that everyone is kept in sync. You can exchange documents and files. Our infrastructure enables up to 10 gigabytes per single file to be exchanged between the nodes. You have a network with which you can interact. One of the protocols we enable is a simple chat. So you can actually chat. We can exchange messages. You don't need to open an email system to actually communicate. You can communicate with your stakeholders in the context where the business needs to be executed. So you save the time in opening the email. Let me understand what I need to do. Let me check if this one is the latest I received. Let me check the attachment. All those things, which sometimes are discarded, but it takes ages. One of the key feedback from one of our stakeholders was, with B3i, we went from 1,000 emails to few. 1,000 to few. Imagine the amount of time that you save, and imagine the value we create for customers to buy insurance. Of course, then you can exchange data of multiple types. And we are investing, as I said, in this integration layer to enable you to exchange data in a secured and structured way. Let me give you an example of the B3i insurance protocol and where we are today, because this is a work in progress. So here you have a snapshot of some of the components that are available in the reinsurance protocol. First of all is the digital and smart contracts. Yes, you can say it's digital and or smart, because the industry needs to catch up a little bit in making their reinsurance contract actually smart. And we are now in a phase where everything is word-driven, everything is PDF-driven, everything is prose-driven. So we enable also the possibility of leveraging the blockchain, not only for the intelligent layer, not only for the smart layer, but also for the persisting layer, to store the truth and to share the truth, not to delegate calculations to the ledger. It's possible, absolutely possible. But you have the choice. We give choice to the users. Either you want to create a digital contract, you are using the blockchain as your persisting layer, or you want to create a smart contract, fine. Then this is zero admin reinsurance, as we talk. The blockchain takes care of calculating loads of complex scenarios for your treaty. So you have then a claims management component that is enabling to execute claims management transactions between the multiple stakeholders. And you have the interactions and chat, so you can communicate. You can send emojis even. There is the identity and permission that is enabled. So we are developing there, as part of the integration layer, an IDP layer where you can integrate the identity. So in other words, enabling single sign-on. You have enhanced wording. So you can actually create your own wording in a what you see is what you get tool. Okay, there is a component that you can plug in multiple applications, of course, where you can actually qualify your wording in a word editor and inject parameters inside, so that you always have a parametric structured digital contract and the wording next to it that is pointing to some of those parameters, so that you don't have to do the work twice. But this is just an example of what can be done on the user experience when you have a ledger that is enabling many of those. Technical accounting is the consequence, right, of binding a contract. And here you can use literally a distributed ledger to write down your accounting items, your credits and debits. And those credits and debits, they always end up into the distributed ledger with a creditor and a debtor. And moving on, there is the possibility of executing financial transactions, financial accounting transactions, to exchange documents. But more importantly, where we are looking in is to bridge the gap also with the banking infrastructure, with the banking network. So going into enabling also payments for on and off ledger transactions. With this, what you can see to conclude is that we work in a full complementary fashion to what the existing tools enable. The placement platform, the underwriting platform, the core gateways, the insurance admin system, the financial accounting. So the existing IT landscape is there to stay, but we're giving to the industry a utility that is enabling and empowering everyone to actually accelerate the execution of processes that they do today. And more importantly, to achieve binding, legally binding transaction on a specific dedicated infrastructure. With this, I can move to the next part of my speech, which is how do we enable this? How do we enable all of these? Where we are setting the example from a certain standpoint for the industry. Okay, we do not develop solution for a single stakeholder. We work for many. Okay, we don't go after a single solution for a single company. I wish we would, but we go for the most complicated things. So we have established communities where this discussion happen. And I launch here the idea, why don't we establish an IIA community to think, and a think tank where we can actually stimulate the thinking of solutions that before no one thought, because there was no possibility of thinking beyond the problem of a single company. Most of those challenges were discarded because it was difficult to achieve, because you have to involve multiple stakeholders. But as you're here today, you understand that there is willingness to establish those ecosystems, and there is a technology that enables that. There is the possibility to solve problems in cooperation with competitors and achieve results which are good not just for your own efficiency and effectivity, but for the end customer. And how would that work? We have quite an experience in that area. So the first phase of what we do, we bring all those stakeholders together with their business experts, with their knowledge to qualify what is the business case. So what is that we can literally generate there for the industry? What is the driver? Is it efficiency? Is it effectivity? Is it customer-facing services? Is it growth? Starting from the business case, which is a transversal business case because we invest in aligning the interest of many parties, then we go into solution ideation. We go into very strong agile cycles together with our partners where we ideate, we totally invent the solution that is delivering the business case. And once we have a clear map of what is needed, we create prototypes. We support with our startups, with our partners, with all the customers, we create prototypes, and so that we can bring the solution alive, they can see exactly how it could be, and so that we can capture more feedback and refine. But in order to strengthen that, we go into market consultations as well. So we facilitate solutions to be actually challenged, evaluated by the market, to ensure that what we are at the end bringing is a real transversal solution. Once the first 4 phases are done, which are the most difficult, look, it's the one that you have really to align the thoughts and minds of many stakeholders, then we go in development and deployment. And of course, there we bring our expertise, we support the startups in developing, or we develop also with our own capacities, with our own engineers in partnership with MSG, in partnership with TCS. After that, and once we go in operation, we enter into a scaling phase because we want to create the network effect. We want to increase the network participation so that every single application can actually benefit from that. And then we activate also, we support startups in the sales cycles so that for multiple startups, it's easier to market their application and they can get to engage. We want them engaging with many insurers and reinsurers so that they can really bring the tech next to the insurance and make that tech word bigger than insure sometime. An example. Our path to success is articulated in an ideation and validation phase of 6 weeks. And then based on that, we qualify what is the effort required in order to design and deliver it. And we support this, with our fluidity platform, where we can accelerate a lot. And then based on the complexity, we go in test and deployment. And we really support your journey to bottom this and to get your solution out there, starting from the business case, starting from the impact that your idea, that your pain can make to the industry. And our delivery methodology is hectic. I would love to say that it's actually those two beautiful circles, but the reality is that yes, we go. Who knows agile development and scaled agile development knows how it works. We are, I would say, a very strong scaled agile operating model. We constantly refine requirements, we develop, we deploy, we test, we learn a lot, we capture feedback from customers, we review the feedback, we decide whether we need to potentially prioritize the feature and refine it immediately, or develop it, or eventually update the roadmap. And through the means of the community or a governance body that we often establish, we discuss with them what is the right priority. So our approach is literally to mobilize the industry in thinking beyond developing solutions just vertically for their own problem, because inefficiencies are actually out there. So we enable the stakeholder engagement, the requirement gathering. We have rigorous testing embedded in fluidity, and we support the end-to-end life cycle for development. And as I said, we establish industry transversal work groups, communities that are responsible to drive the thinking of the industries to what is actually the business case for an utility to be leveraged. And we support also in that scenario startups and companies to assess what is the best commercial model. How can they actually bring those applications in the market to accelerate the adoption, but ensuring that the commercial model is always sustainable. With that, I've seen lots of questions which I will be happy to pick after, but I'll pass it back to John for his intervention on how we add value.
Hi, everyone, and very happy to be back. Antonio, thank you very much for that. And I think, as you've seen in the questions, there are definitely a few questions that you're much better positioned to answer than I am. So please go ahead and help out the audience with some of those. So what I want to close with is really talk about how we create value for the insurance industry, what the role of B3i and the wider ecosystem that we seek to create. So coming back to what it is that we're building, we have a network, we have 60 companies registered with nodes in our network transacting. We have our platform Fluidity, and we're building what we believe will become a functionally rich ecosystem built by ourselves and partners and third-party application developers. By way of analogy, it's not so dissimilar to the first year of the iPhone, where there were 10 applications on your screen. They were all built by Apple. And 1 year later, a new little icon appeared, and it was the App Store, where new innovative solutions that Apple couldn't dream up themselves propagated into their ecosystem and created this community of developers that could monetize their creativity, their unique insights into solving a myriad of problems. And that's really not too dissimilar to what we're trying to do today. So I've had some questions on this already. We have a network that we operate. There are 60, as of the end of December, there were 60 nodes operating within our network. They have certificates issued to them by the Corda Network Foundation that identify them in the network. We're as what's defined as a business network operator operating those networks. We have some sub networks where there is a regional solution where it's something like Europco. They can only transact through the Europco application with the members of that particular sub-network. And we also look at, we're looking at a number of other opportunities for geographically located regional sub-networks where there are other engagement models for people to manage those networks. We expect, based on our current pipeline of projects, that in 2021 we'll see, 2022, we'll see a significant growth in the size of our network because of the scale that some of those applications bring. I think one of the other important things to understand about the network is that these are some of these are physical nodes, physical infrastructure, on-premise installations that are set up by the transacting companies. Others are managed by B3i, where we provide a cloud managed service, and I'll talk a little bit more about that now. So B3i's cloud managed infrastructure, we call it Node as a Service. More than 90% of our customers use this. It wasn't, we didn't expect there to be a need for this when we originally architected our network vision. We expected far more customers to want to own and operate their own infrastructure. What it does enable is the really rapid setup of infrastructure to bring someone into the network so that they can begin transacting. So it takes us about 45 minutes to run a few scripts and set up the physical infrastructure. Within a day, a certificate identifying that entity joins the network. B3i provides the physical security around around the virtual implementation of that node in our cloud. On the other hand, physical security is provided of the node infrastructure for those running on-prem is provided by themselves. You'll immediately notice that at 60 nodes, that's far more than the number of shareholders we have. This isn't a network that is built for our shareholders. Our customer numbers are significantly greater than that. And although it's a private network, it's one where we often talk about being by the market for the market. So we want to bring down the barriers to entry to joining the network and transacting the network as much as possible. And Node as a Service has been really turnkey in enabling us to do that. So taking what was taking days for large sophisticated insurers to set up infrastructure, we can now provide that and keep those nodes up to date by pushing software updates and really take a lot of the headache out of infrastructure, because no one comes for the infrastructure. They come for the high level functionality. They come for the specific problem that someone is solving, and infrastructure is just one of those things that you need to do. So we want to make that as straightforward as possible. Then we can't not mention when we talk about our ecosystem built by B3i partners and third-party application developers, the partnership we have with TCS in particular. So TCS are a delivery partner for us. They help us build applications. They also bring their own intellectual property to enrich the functionality within the ecosystem. What they bring to us as well is global scale. We're a Swiss company based in Zurich. Although we have a fairly distributed workforce, it gets very difficult for us to service customers 24/7 across the globe, and that's a footprint that TCS brings to us and enables an operating model that allows us to be customer centric and provide services 24/7. They also have a huge footprint in insurance. So we work with them around a joint go-to-market strategy focused on around their customers, their ability to provide professional services to customers, particularly around integration, because of it's important to understand. I think Antonio made this point very clearly. Like, this isn't all about being DLT native. There is a lot of what we do is about, or is ensuring that customers can sweat their existing investments in legacy systems, which won't be end of life for sometimes decades. And so the at its core, um, providing trusted data that is in synchronicity across multiple parties is one of the key things that we seek to do. And in every company, that's different. And that's where having the professional services that TCS can bring to enable that alongside existing infrastructure is really, really important. They also bring lots of skills to us, skills and knowledge that B3i doesn't inherently have. We know a lot about DLT, but very frequently we will be touching data science, artificial intelligence that is using the trusted data from the network, but they're able to bring in their expertise and to enrich the outcomes for our customers. My key message in how we create value, that is the takeaway that I want to give to everyone before we hand over to questions, is this understanding of we've built applications where we've engaged deeply with customers. We have a methodology, as Antonio's outlined, of how we do that and how we bring governance to the process, which is inherently difficult because this is a mutual technology. It involves many parties. If you're doing it for a single company, then you're probably not using the right technology. And we've had the benefit of the DNA that we share with our founding shareholders that have given us pointed us to areas where we can focus and communities of users that want to solve that problem. But ultimately, how successful we will be is limited by how creative the ecosystem of third-party application developers and partners can be, the breadth and reach that they can cover, and their insights into pain points of users, which at their core have something to do with trusted data. That's where we want to create our end goal is this functionally rich ecosystem, but not built by us. We want to provide the network, provide the building blocks, create the operating model to scale it, to be a digital distribution channel for new and innovative InsurTech solutions, where instead of just selling to one company, you can sell a solution to multiple companies in our network, or better yet, if it is a solution that isn't possible to do within one company, but yet across the network you can access data to solve a mutual problem where there's a common interest. That's really the sweet spot. And so we want to be that ecosystem that where the best solutions win, the best applications that solve the problems win. And in time, our role will be one of orchestrating or curating that ecosystem for the benefit of the insurance industry, where we're the market utility that have defined protocols that everyone then gets busy with building the insurers of the future. Because ultimately, every single one of the insurance companies that I interact with is focused on customer experience, focused on digital transformation, but that's something they can't do on an island. And we're there building the common infrastructure, the common protocols for them to go out and compete, to have differentiating digital transformation strategies, to find the best tools to be the best and most efficient insurers that they can, to define new products and new business models. And that's where the creativity that people outside of B3i can bring and build on top of our foundations is what will be hugely transformative for the global insurance industry. With that, I'll hand back, and we're very happy to take any questions that you may have.
John and Antonio, thank you for taking up the time. That was fantastic. I see there's actually been a lot of great questions that have come up on the chat windows that you've been answering. Maybe let me start by bringing out a question from my side, and I'd suggest to the audience, please continue to add your questions in the chat. But let's say starting with the Indian ecosystem, right? We've got insurers, we've got reinsurers, within insurers, we've got general insurance companies, life insurance companies, we've got intermediaries. Now, the Indian InsurTech ecosystem, the Indian insurance ecosystem, when we get together and say, hey, let's go partner with B3i, how do we start thinking about easy use cases for, say, in-country use cases, right? What are some of the top 2-3 use cases that come to mind that we could bring together?
Antonio, do you want to?
Sure, absolutely. The beauty of brainstorming in this area is that it's actually a green field, right? And there are opportunities. I can give you some examples that we have seen for very simple implementations, and that required not really huge investment. Think about, for example, in the process of onboarding a customer. Sometimes there is information that is actually shared between insurers. Due to some regulation in some other countries, you have to share the claims history, okay? Or let's say the claims record, to ensure that their profile is uniform, and so that they can actually switch insurance, but the insurer knows exactly what is their loss history. This process in many countries is manual, okay? Or sometimes it's actually happening through the means of a centralized platform that may be exposed to different types of challenges there. A blockchain could help in that area. Other examples is co-insurance work, okay? You have with policies that sometimes are shared between multiple insurers. The process through which the information is actually shared, it's manual. And this manual, the latency that it's in the middle, poses challenges to the service that is provided to the customer. Establishing a shared truth in a distributed fashion enables that synchronicity, and so it removes the latency, so everyone is on the same page. But there are tons of use cases. Imagine proof of insurance. Okay, we talk a lot now. NFTs are the the hype there. It's actually higher on the ladder than Bitcoin. But is proof of insurance actually an NFT that you cannot trade, but you can actually prove, right? So leveraging an infrastructure that is giving you the possibility of querying if a policy exists and potentially generate a certificate out of it, if you have the authority for doing that, that's a great use case. But also in a simple scenario, think about parametric insurance. For agriculture, for example, what is the real administration cost that an insurer needs to bear in order to enable that product? Sometimes that cost exceeds the premium that can be paid by the farmer.
Yep.
So think about establishing a utility in the industry that is helping all insurers to distribute very low premium products, but in an economical fashion. John, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's certain use cases that we see out there in other markets that I would imagine you know, subrogation of claims is one. I mean, I think whenever you've got multiple parties interacting, And trust in data is an important element. One starts to think about that. So subrogation, the fraudulent claim use case, proof of insurance is another one. I think they're parametric insurance, so particularly in emerging markets where you don't have the physical distribution model you have, say, in Europe, where almost every village has an Allianz or a Generali, and there's a broker. To have products that are the marginal cost of administration is really low, that can be delivered digitally, like parametric crop insurance. Those are the kind of things where I would think there's huge opportunities in India.
Great. And I think that makes a lot of sense. We've got agriculture insurance in India through the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. And I'm sure they'll also be interested to hear more about, the role that blockchain can play either on the smart contract side, or how even the risk is, say, transferred between the different parties. John and Antonio, it would be also interesting to hear more about the risk pools. So, for example, you've got the nuclear risk pool. How does a regulator in those markets play a role? And what would it mean for the Indian regulator to, say, consider, introducing blockchain into some of these risk pools that we have in India too?
Yeah, so I'll happily take that one. So I think the interesting thing for risk pools, so whether it's a terrorism risk pool, or they're very often mandatory cession of a certain amount of premium by law set by the regulators. They may manage the pool, they may have someone else manage the pool, and that's the kind of work which, depending on how that risk is getting in there, can be very manual. The process by which it's been set up, and I've read a number of the sort of operating reports of national pools, terrorism pools, flood pools. They're investing in technology to make that more efficient, and this is one where we have a strategy around pools, because they are those natural networks where I articulated how we intend to tackle nuclear pools, but that's really translatable to others. And I think more generally within blockchain, the regulators, often we see them as a stakeholder. So it may just be reporting, which can, depending on the location, be quite manual, lottery keying. We see them being active participants in the network, where they can see contemporaneous, like, risk accumulations and get a kind of a snapshot of what's happening. But I think for us, often the regulations create the unique circumstances, almost the governance model, the federating mechanism by which you can then use the technology to make that more efficient. So the IRDA is someone that we have spoken to about this in the past, and it's certainly something that's on our roadmap for the future to focus on those pools.
Thanks, John. That makes sense. We at 5:30. I'm going to ask one last question for the audience. So, John, you also spoke about RTL, the risk transfer language. I think RTL that you've created, Ledger, or the language that you've created. Could you, for the audience, elaborate on that? What's the role that you played, and what's acceptability? How are you bringing acceptability in the community for that?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, because I actually saw another question about, have you seen prototypes for implementing insurance contracts on blockchain via smart contracts? Well, that's what the RTL is. It happens to be used today with reinsurance contracts, but we just see those as another class of insurance contract. So it is a domain model for insurance smart contracting that is generally extensible, and it's a proprietary model that we've developed specifically for the smart contracting capability. We don't consider that it would always necessarily be proprietary. We've entertained the possibility of open sourcing it. We would see, although it's implemented in our instance today on Corda, we would see that potentially the RTL could be implemented on many blockchains to make risk more transportable, to create the remove the friction and the many proof points already around cross-chain compatibility. So this is like, as a core component, this gets to the core of the problem of costs, of everyone describing what can be thought of as a fairly standard thing in a different way.
Thanks, John. And you should open source it. Let the community drive what that article will look like. You'll have hundreds of folks contributing to it. So we're at 5:30. I'm going to stop here. John, Antonio, thank you. This is a fantastic session. I think this is a great start to our Deep Tech in Insurance series. I personally learned a lot about blockchain, and I'm sure we started a lot of stakeholders here from India started thinking about blockchain, how to bring back blockchain to India, and as an ecosystem, right? How do we build this out and bring insurers, reinsurers, the policymakers together to bring forward at least 2 to 3 blockchain initiatives in India over the next year. So thank you for taking up the time. Thank you, B3i.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks a lot.